Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we are gathered for our monthly community event. And this night is centered around Mars moving through Gemini and retrograding and lingering for 8 of its 24 months. So right now, I want you to just relax into your space while we do some breath work. I've already called in the 4 directions. I did that beforehand because we're going to do a very special breath work. Mars and Gemini, the air sign, we all need to breathe a little deeper. That's right, make a connection above, below, and at the heart. As we do this will allow others a little time to join us. And we are going to move through the chakras, but we're going to go from the crown down into the root to be here now. So we're going to start at the crown, relax into your space. Deep breath, making that connection above, below, and at the heart. Deep breath in. And hold and release. So I want you to start at your crown chakra, making that connection to your soul star, your higher self. And as we breathe in evolved consciousness and original thought, we are going to breathe out ignorance and apathy. So take a deep breath in of evolved consciousness and original thought. Deep breath in. And we're going to release any ignorance and apathy. Down into your third eye, where we're going to breathe in creative solutions and expanded self-awareness. And we're going to breathe out lack of imagination and indecisiveness. So a deep breath in, making that connection to your own imagination and third eye. Connecting to your creative solutions and expanded self-awareness. Breathe in. And breathe out lack of imagination and indecisiveness. Come on down into your throat chakra, making that connection to your authentic voice and breathing in your own personal standpoint and releasing with your out breath any seething or suffering in silence, either way. Deep breath in, breathing in your authentic voice and personal standpoint. Deep breath in. And on the out breath, let go of seething or suffering in silence. Come on down into your heart chakra, which connects above and below. Here we're going to breathe in embodied wisdom and clarity. And we're going to breathe out isolation and disconnection. Deep breath in, breathing in embodied wisdom and clarity. Deep breath in. And breathing out isolation and disconnection at the heart. Release that. Come on down into your power center, where you're going to breathe in effective actions and inspired language. The power of the spoken word. We're going to breathe out any defensiveness or victim consciousness. At that power center is where we store our childhood wounds and any insecurities. So we're going to breathe in that effective actions and inspired language. Deep breath in. And breathe out any defensiveness and victim consciousness. Come on down to your creative center. Here, I want you to breathe in your own clever wit and authentic self-expression, and breathe out impatience and superficiality. Make that connection to your own creative center and breathe in your own clever wit and wisdom. We love that. It comes from your own authentic self-expression. Breathe that in. And breathe out impatience and superficiality. Come on down into the root, where we be here now, to breathe in raw vitality and renewed energy. And breathe out debilitating anger and unconscious aggressiveness. Deep breath in at that root chakra, connecting to your own vitality and renewing your energy source. Deep breath in. And on the out breath, debilitating anger and unconscious aggressiveness. Let all that go. Deep breath. All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Looks like we have a decent crew starting out. I think some others might join us along the way when they figure out their time zones and whatnot. But we have a very special thing happening. Mars in Gemini, retrograding and lingering this long has not happened since 1990. So for those of us old enough to remember back then, I know I was coming into some crazy new levels of self-expression at that time. How I communicated, how I was thinking, all of that was very different then. And now I feel such an excitement around a renewal and a chance to reboot this cycle in a bigger way, in a really bigger way. Mars retrogrades every 2 years, giving us a chance to reset who we are and what we want on a fundamental level. It's helping us to connect with our masculine and reset that in a very fundamental way as well. I usually consider the masculine to be the part of us that can negotiate on our own behalf, get our ideas in the world, and hold good boundaries. So our feminine is the part of us that can contain, nurture, and protect. And we're working these. We're getting a huge reset in the year 22. These are our bookends. We started the year with Venus retrograde, changing our values and priorities around our roles and responsibilities and commitments and things. We had to reset all that. And as that happened, we've moved through a couple of Mercury retrogrades. We got one coming up now. And the end of the year, as soon as we come out of that Mercury retrograde, Mars goes backwards. That takes us through the end of the year into spring. So now we're reworking our actions and choices. Hopefully, because the values have changed, we have access to more choices, let's say, and more opportunities. So we want to look at it that way. We know that we have to work with Mars because Mars has a lot of shadow energy too around the anger and frustration and impatience. Like we said, all of that can happen when Mars is not getting its expression right. So we also want to think of it as fire. Fire, when it's contained, can cook us food, can keep us warm, is the difference between life and death. But if it's all over the place, burning through stuff, tearing up stuff, extremes, then not so good, right? We don't want to do it that way. Now, this 2-year cycle, I always like to remind people that Mars spends about 2 months in a sign. That's why staying for 7 to 8 is so special. So 2 months takes about 24 to get through all 12 signs. And so I always tell people this is an 8-month investment for a 16-month return. And that makes our 24-month cycle. And so it's important that we take these timeouts every couple of years to check in with the self, with your identity, with your purpose, with why you want what you want and how you're pursuing what you need and things. So that always needs an upgrade. And you can imagine if we don't think about a 2-year cycle, then maybe 2, 4, 6, 8 years go by. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, who I am and what I want doesn't even make sense right now. So that's when things have been pushed to the side and you've put yourself on the back burner too long. And it's time to bring that back up front and work on what's important to you. As you reset your desires, your motivations, that internal Mars energy that drives you to get up in the morning, right? That's getting a reset. So we can reclaim all kinds of goodness when Mars resets like this. Like I said, the last time it did it in Gemini was 1990. So what I want to also remind you of is that 2 years ago, Mars retrograded in Aries. Last time it would have done that was 1988. So you see how these years from the late 80s, early 90s, this cycle with Mars energy is back again. How we express and do and be in a literal, pretty literal way in our everyday ways. So that Aries reset, though, I really love that it happened during 2020 and 2021, because that speaks to the huge reset of the whole masculine dynamic, okay? We get to call in that new level as it gets back to Aries. That's a clean slate for everyone. So now that we've changed the purpose of the masculine, we've given the masculine a whole new identity and direction that we're going to be sovereign and self-sufficient is what's jumping to mind. But what I meant was self-contained. We're going to be independent and keep our containers really tight so that we can function better. And so that reset in Aries was bigger, social collective, right? And that's going to allow a huge reset. Now, after that, just imagine if you have a new purpose. Now we're resetting in Gemini. That's new thinking, new ideas, new self-expression, new ways of communicating. And I also am really big on this one in particular. I have been just getting confirmation after confirmation from all different angles that this is a reset for our mental health after COVID. This is post-COVID, trying to move back into the world and have social connections. If we can choose consciously how we're going to go forward and interact with everyone, we need to first go within and figure out what we need in terms of boundaries, in terms of community, in terms of alone time. You know, some of us need more and less than others. So that's a very personal thing. And when I'm in here talking about these big alignments that affect us all, there is going to be a way for you to know how it's affecting you personally. But all of this is available. Now, our time frame that we want to look at, well, before I get to that, I want to talk about the mutable signs. Virgo, Pisces, and Gemini, Sag are all related. So when Gemini is activated in this initiatory way, so keep that in mind too. We're initiating in our Gemini house. We're integrating in our Sag house. If you have any planets there, you're initiating and integrating with them too, whatever their issues are, whatever they bring up for you. So that house is your area of life that's being activated and renewed. We want to look at that as well with being the processors, right? This is what I want to remind you about. So we have the cardinal energies, which are Aries, Libra, and Cancer, Capricorn. They're very active. They want to make choices and decisions. There's lots of movement. They rule our winter, spring, summer, fall time. And I always try to get people to learn this rhythm because it's a repetitive rhythm that helps us cultivate our lives. At winter, spring, summer, fall, when we have to make all those choices and decisions, there's always the month before for processing in Virgo, Pisces, and Gemini, Sag, and the month after for anchoring or releasing in Leo, Aquarius, or Taurus, Scorpio. So each little grouping of 4 signs has their own energy and way of expressing, and what it's called a modality is what it is. So the cardinal, like I said, is very action. Mutable is the connections, and fixed for the Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. That is, again, it's just like it sounds, it's fixed. It's a challenge to change things, but once you change, it's usually permanent. So we still love them. We still want to work with those aspects of self and those areas of life that those signs rule. But the rhythm is process, make your choices and decisions, and then anchor or release. If we've done our good processing, then with choices and decisions are a lot easier. We have a lot more clarity. And when we do that well, we know whether we are either anchoring something new we're putting in place or letting go of something old that's no longer viable and doing that permanent release, because now we've made choices and decisions and something's changed and that's not going to work anymore. So it's all connected. And like I said, it's kind of a repetitive rhythm. Virgo, Pisces are being challenged to grow in this one. Like I said, the initiations in Gemini, the integrations in Sag, the growth and development is happening in our Pisces, Virgo. So now we're going to look at these as Pisces, Virgo, I always see as the spirit in human form and having to balance out our daily lives that have to do with our physical body and our spiritual practices. So we are in a tremendous zone right now, getting a huge renewal and influx of energy for renewing our practices and our routines and the things that support us. A lot of times we go along in habit, in kind of a autopilot mode, and things wear out. And all of a sudden the routine that worked perfectly for you for years, maybe even, that's happened to me, you wake up and it just don't work anymore. So that is where we are supported to do some shifting and changing and making some new decisions and going in new directions around, like I said, our daily routine and our personal practices. That's going to be huge. The other big thing about Virgo, Pisces that always has to do with us in the world, social collective, and navigating that is to have really good boundaries. Virgo is our systems. It rules all our individual systems and how those systems have to work together. So if our nervous system is already overwrought by general everyday things, right? Then just imagine if something happens or you have a challenge or something comes up and you're totally drained and can't deal with it. So we want to renew some of those energy stores as well. And this is a huge opportunity to process. Mars lingering in Gemini is going to push all 4 of those buttons in all 4 directions for you, asking you to process physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally on every level. We've got to integrate the last couple of years that we've just gone through, right? If we don't, who we are and what we want is going to be really hard to express in the social collective realms. So it's important that we do that and we do it consciously, right? So when I put my little label on our thing today, it was a new cycle of clarity, creativity, and consciousness. But you know, the shadow of that is total confusion versus clarity, the lack of imagination versus getting creative, and the unconsciousness that we know a lot of people are running around with. Now, Yay actually asked me with Mars, what's the war on? The war is on our mental health, right? So this is another way that COVID actually gave us a way to break, to realign with the social systems that don't work for us. This energy of learning our own boundaries and what's good for our system is going to allow us to step back into little circles and different ways of interacting with other people, a lot more anchored in who we are, in our authentic self and who we really are. And we're not going to put ourselves in situations that are toxic or that violate our boundaries. You know, I have a girlfriend, she's like, I have abandonment issues. I said, well, I got boundary issues. Don't violate my boundaries. I won't have to abandon you. Real simple. So we want to know what our nervous system can handle in a day-to-day, and then how much extra it can ever handle, right? And we got a process to do that. We have to know kind of where we're at with everything. So this is a huge reset to our mental body. So I want to look at it that way too. It's a 2-year Mars cycle. But again, think that bigger cycle, the 90s to now, that's another 24 or 32 years or whatever it is. It's going to be a whole nother long time before we get another reset like this. That's why it's so juicy that the last time was in Aries. Like I said, that's resetting the whole social collective. But when we dial it in for personal, we want to get clear about what's coming up to be processed. What have we put off so long or over long that could be bubbling and causing problems? When we don't deal with this stuff, it can back up on us and cause other problems down the road. So now I do have the shadow period. I want to let you all know some dates to sort of handle your understanding the energy and how it's coming in. So anytime Mars is retrograde, also, there's a lot of feeling of restricting our actions. We can't do what we want to do when we want to do it. But again, I think if we do our processing right, then we can do better with this, right? So if we don't process, we're just choosing off of either survival mode and what we need in this moment, and we can't wait to do a process, right? Or if we're in denial and we just don't want to process nothing, no way, and we're just trying to get through the day, that's really challenging too. So again, this whole upgrade is for us to figure out what we need for our own mental health and mental strength to be able to function. And so the shadow period is September 3rd to October 30th. Okay, so we're going into it in the next week or so. And that is when the energies are going to start to slow down. But Mars also kind of intensifies. So you're going to start to really feel it in the Gemini zone. The retrograde itself is October 30th to January 12th of 2023. And then the post-shadow period is then January 12th to March 15th, technically. And then it doesn't move into Cancer until March 23rd, I believe. So it's going to be spring equinox of 2023 when Mars comes out of this process, goes into Cancer, which is going to be very powerful because that's going to square the Aries sun. That's going to be our awakening evolution. It's going to be very clear what our next level is going forward. And I always pay attention to the kind of the last thing they do before they go in and the first thing they do when they come out. And moving into Cancer in Mars, again, if we've done our processing mentally, then moving into those emotional waters of Cancer, we're going to be, again, so much more clear about what our personal individual needs are, that we won't do the Cancer thing where we overgive and drain ourselves, taking care of everybody else and putting ourselves on the back burner, because this is not what time it is. Working with Mars, self-preservation is not selfish. It is essential. And I love Yay's backup for that is that it is the first law of nature, that self-preservation is how we're wired. We get programmed to do otherwise, right? There's all kinds of drama with the patriarchy and Western culture that has imposed all this crap on us. And we've been shedding those skins for years. I know everybody in this circle has been doing the work. So here we are at these new levels. And if everything else is broken, my other thing, if nothing's in place, then anything's possible. So let's dream up what we want it to be, going back into social circles, going back into community circles, doing anything with our loved ones, because that's going to be a challenge too. I used to really need good boundaries, and now it's even deeper, what we want to do with them. So let's see, we got to get to the good stuff. Okay, first, I want to look at the activations. I just want to give you a heads up that the 3 big things Mars is going to do in Gemini is trine Saturn in Aquarius. A trine is a blessing. This is earned rewards from the hard work we've put in. But you got to remember with the retrograde, it's a process. Mars is going to hit Saturn once, go back over it, hit it twice, come back for the final time, and hit it 3 times over. And if you want those prayer days, I'm going to type those up in our post call goodies. So you'll have those dates, because those will be the intention days where Mars and Saturn are really good in a trine. Means we have the energy and stamina to go the distance on these whatever creative projects are coming up for us. So that's really juicy. But because of the retrograde, there's probably going to be some stop and go. And I think that's also going to come up because, again, activating our imaginations, stepping into these new realms with people again, whatever we're going to do, however we're going to do that. This is all, again, really important for you to know what your boundaries are, messing with Saturn, right? But this is where you get to choose your next purpose, right? You get to choose what you're going to stand up for, what your new roles and responsibilities are going to be, because you gave up the old ones at the beginning of the year. So at the end of the year, we're processing the new ones we want to step into. So while Mars is slow and outside action or interacting with others is a little hampered or challenging, this is when you do your vision boards, you do your ancestor work, you talk to your people, you talk to your ancestors, angels, and animal spirit guides, get your information on what your next purpose is going to be, what your next leg of the journey is going to be about. And we got lots of goodness to support this. But I love that it's ease and grace. Okay, that trine means we have ease and grace around resetting our reality around who we are and what we want as individuals. I really want you to stay personal on this one. It's all about you when we're talking Mars, okay? Now, the opportunity comes with Chiron. It's going to sextile Chiron in Aries 3 times over. So the healing, education, and soul work that Chiron's brought up around Aries, which most of you have heard me say, you got to do everything yourself. You want help, you need help, you deserve help, you're not going to get it. This is the reset of learning how to heal yourself, do for yourself, contain yourself, and actually teach yourself. That self-learning, that self-education is vitally important for you to have an internal fire that drives you toward wanting to learn that way, right? To learn something to better yourself so that you can contribute more to the team, as it were. That's what we're really going for. Now, the big challenge, and why I also just keep driving home that we're resetting boundaries with other people, is the square to Neptune. And so that square to Neptune is powerful as well, because we got some feminine entities working with us as well. That is going to bring in Vesta and Juno. What is sacred to you, the individual? Individually, what's sacred in Pisces? This, again, is your spiritual practices, your connection to God and source energy. We're resetting all that, what you believe to be true or possible. And with Vesta, it's not usually what's important, it's what we make sacred. So it's not just important that you take time out for your physical well-being and some daily exercise or movement of some sort, but your spiritual well-being is critical right now. It is so critical. There's a lot of energy swirling about. And if our boundaries aren't good, remember what I say, hemp or bamboo, super strong, super flexible, but breathable. We still want to know what's going on around us, but not so much that it overwhelms the system. And we don't want to be brick walls where we can't know what's happening either. And then things broadside us. We don't want that either. So this is going to be the challenge. Again, dreaming up. Juno is about partnership. So this is making you, the individual, sacred, and any partnerships you get into sacred. And there's this huge reset that if we give it a spiritual foundation, we have a lot more chance of success. If we keep good boundaries and we take care of the little things in Virgo, then we can have that bigger dream in Pisces. So that energy is our challenge to grow and to really get to our next level, essentially. And these 3 times over, again, there's a process. So I don't know about you, but I've literally reset my altars maybe 3 times this year, and normal is maybe once or twice a year. And it's because these energies are shifting so fast and things are happening so much, we have to process and integrate. Okay, so that's another thing we do when we're doing our lunar work. I always say when we get to integration time at the full moon, it may not be that we have to release so much as integrate it. If we have extra weight or excess anything around us and we're not processing and integrating it, then that's what it is. It's a burden that you're carrying. But if you can process and integrate and make it part of your foundation, the bricks in your foundation, then that's embodied wisdom. That's when you've taken it in and you really learned what you needed to learn in this process. So those are not bad activations. We only have 3, it could be worse. We could have a lot more. And then the divinations were the most powerful. And so I want to ask a question. You all can write in the chat or email me directly if you want these typed up in a PDF, because I'd be happy to do that. They're going to be a couple of bullets, but they're so rich that if it were me as a participant, I would want the PDF. But if no one's going to read it, I don't want to make it. So let me know at the end. I did the I Ching, and I love Stephen Karcher's Total I Ching because he has the shaman's interpretation and the scholar's interpretation. And so I love that way that we can feed those different sides. So we're going to go through these. I got some really good highlights. And then I have a very special excerpt to share from you that is from my book, Myth Astrology. Let's see if you can see. That is by Raven Caldera. What they've done is there is a different god or goddess for every single placement. And they have Marduk as the god for Mars in Gemini. And this is just a little bit more of a storytelling, activate your imagination thing I want to do right before we go into journey so that it kind of primes the pump for what we're going for. But the other thing that was really poignant and why I chose it is because it's going to give you what you need to understand what you're looking at in the world. You all are going to see some crazy in the next year or two. This is also what's getting opened up and let loose. So in order to, stay sovereign, stay protected, keep those good boundaries, I really want you ready for these things from different angles. And so those are going to be really juicy too. So our I Ching, and for those of you who may not know, the I Ching is a conduct oracle, and I throw the cowrie shells, and you do that 6 times to get your answer. And very often you get 2 answers. You get what's going on right now. And for us, it was number 25, disentangling. That is changing to, when you get changing lines, changing to 45, which is gathering them and the great work. So if we can disentangle ourselves from the chaos and the nonsense and the past and, people and draining things around our resources, we can really step into the great work, whatever your offering is, whatever your purpose is. And that may be very simple, homemaking, gardening. I love all these different oracles, but like I said, Stephen Karcher's I Ching is really juicy. So here's our bullets. The keywords for disentangling. Our keywords are disentangle yourself, spontaneous, unplanned, and unexpected. This is something else I'm thinking about with this energy, y'all, is that the better we can do with processing and integrating our own lives and the things going on, our creative projects, all the different ideas, thoughts, and concepts that Mars and Gemini stirs up and makes us want to act on, right? It does that if we're organized in our Virgo parts. We can be more spontaneous in the moment. We can take advantage of impromptu opportunities. And you better know that the angels, ancestors, and animal spirit guides, that's how they work. They want you to just be ready, and then you can respond in a conscious way. So spontaneous, unplanned, and unexpected, that's part of the game this year, y'all. Pure equals free from confusion. So let's purify our systems, maybe do a cleanse. This is always a good time during Virgo to do a cleanse. I'm about to do one. Exorcism, purification from plague. Okay, again, with the mental health, I feel like SOCMED is like a plague of sorts. Social media is making people sick. It's not cool. We have to use it for the tool it's good for and let this nonsense, non-reality go. And then it says, waning moon, don't give up hope, and releasing demons from the past. So we've been kind of at that in the Venus circle. We've been at that in other ways as well. But here were the highlights, y'all. This is where it gets deep. We are being released from entanglement. And when you're released from entanglement, it results in a state of balance and purity. I love that. Release yourself from entanglement. Disentangling suggests the ways to maintain that purity and freedom from affliction. Okay, so disentangling, I know for me, for sure, I always joke about me and my husband. Part of the reason we're still together is because both of us are anti-drama people. So we don't allow that entanglement to ever get that bad or that strong, right? It enables you to act spontaneously and deal successfully with whatever comes. Okay, again, if we're anchored inside, we've got a clear mind and an open heart, then we can roll. We want to attract, even welcome the unexpected. So learning how to improvise and think on your feet is going to be a big part of this reset. I have a little to-do star here, more ritual and ceremony for releasing the past and cutting cords. So if you need to do that, do that. That is huge. Be particularly concerned with cultivating the inner way, your inner sage and wise one, okay? Everything you need, desire, or deserve is within you or provided by Mother. You already connected to it. It's like opening the channels is all we need to do. The meditative practices of the inner way or the inner sage helps you focus on that which calms, tranquilizes, rectifies. Remember, we do lots of corrections during retrogrades, corrects and frees the body in order to restore a state of neutrality and align with heaven is what they said. I said a higher self. So to align with heaven or your higher self. This is what we're doing. So the other thing that happens at this time is going to be correcting your thinking, right? We go along and things that used to be true may not be true anymore. So we shouldn't be attached and we shouldn't be on autopilot either, because it is a new day and we need to think in new ways and be open to new possibilities. This allows energy and breath to circulate freely and transform awareness, okay? Disentanglement, that's what that is. When we disentangle, it allows energy and breath. So just remember that Mars and Gemini means we all need to breathe more often and more deeply to let it circulate freely so it can transform our awareness, so we can learn. You know, this one way, one idea, one concept, one world order nonsense doesn't work for Earth. Earth is diverse. Our beings are diverse. Everything about us that works when we have the diversity, not when we go down to single cell organism. So it's important that we're able to do this. Free yourself from disorder, you know, order, the first law of the universe. Disentangle yourself from compulsive ideas, confusion, vanity, anger, lust, hatred, and the desire for revenge. Got to get out of here. And even if you can do a little light a candle ritual for yourself, whatever you can release is unlocking things for others as well. It ripples out, I promise you. So don't worry about saving the world. Just work on your mental health at this time. By freeing yourself from these entanglements, you gain the capacity to act directly, right? So when you're entangled, you got to stick and move. You got to do different things a different way. You got to deal with different people. When you're free and you're sovereign and you're grounded in your own process and your own creative ideas and projects and things you want to do, that goes a lot better. This opens up a whole new cycle of time. So that was the reminder. It's a new 2-year cycle of who you are and what you want. I know I wrote it down. Here's the next time Mars retrogrades. I thought I wrote it down. I got last, now, and next. So I'll put that in the post call goodies too. Where were we at? If you do not correct yourself, you will consistently make mistakes through ignorance and faulty perception. Think of Shadow Gemini. Ignorance and faulty perception is all day up in there. Okay, so we want to really call these things in and do our self-corrections. That's the other thing. In my language days, like I'm a linguist, y'all, you know me. I'm not really a pictures girl as much as I am about language. And so changing the language has always been really helpful for me, changing my life and changing my directions. There is power in the spoken word, whether you're talking to yourself or anyone else. And when you correct, that's where I was going with that. As you self-correct, those ideas and thoughts stop coming in. They're not as often, they're not as debilitating. You don't even think about it after a while because you've corrected yourself so much, you don't even do it anymore. Associate with others without getting caught up in disorder. So more entanglements. We can be around other people, but we need to, like, again, just kind of maintain your individuality within that community or family or group of any kind, right? By continually correcting yourself, you can be in a period of growth, effective power, and enjoyment. I like that too. By continually correcting yourself just means keep your self-awareness on point. Because as you're processing and integrating certain things or shifting your practices, or that's another thing, when we change routines, it don't always work the first day, okay? So let's be patient. Let's work it until there's a rhythm to it. Okay, things aren't going to be an instant rhythm. And right now we're changing the rhythm. So you might have to experiment with a couple of rhythms. That's what I've had to do until you find the one that clicks into place, right? That is our first one. It is changing to the great work and gathering them. So these keywords are gather, assemble, and gather together. Crowds, great effort brings a great reward. Those are the keywords. Now, this was so deep, y'all, I couldn't have planned this. Honor the 4 directions and the 8 seasons and include the ancestors. That was in there, y'all. That's not Kelly. I'm always telling you that anyway. But we got a bigger confirmation that to help with your mental health, to help with your spiritual practices, to help with your physical daily practices, we need to get into these practices of honoring nature and honoring spirit and honoring the ancestors. All of that's going to be connected to your success. Always ask the ancestors first. I caught a beat down from Yeye for not asking first. We won't do that anymore. And we want to tell the world. Always ask the ancestors or the elders first about what you're trying to do. Create or commune with your altars. This is all in the advice for gathering them and setting yourself up for the great work. It is a time of communion with spirit powers and assembly with others. That all supports working in, like I'm going to have the Soul Sisters seasonal circle. That's going to be more ritual and ceremony for the 8 sacred seasons. That's going to be really powerful. So again, if we disentangle, then we can get over to these goodies, right? For what this is talking about. It's time to free the feelings in a flow of spirit that unites people. And then there were these words, purifying and loosening. So it's like we've gotten crusty and stuck and stagnant and brittle, right? We need some juice, we need to get flexible again. Have a firm purpose and a ruling idea. This is another thing Mars helps us reset consciously, okay? Great people. Oh, this is the other thing. Okay, gather, assemble, surround yourself. Even if you're a newbie or a beginner and you're learning these things, surround yourself with great people, ritual specialists, and sages who are source beings who connect the living and the dead. That releases power for you to do great things, right? So again, if we include the ancestors, our angels and animal spirit guides, all of that helps us do better and fulfill our purpose, right? But we also might need an intermediary. You might not be good at that connection thing. You might not be a very clear channel right now. That's another reason we turn to the elders for that. We want to, after we've disentangled, then we go forward to unite people and things through a common feeling or goal. So we want to go back into community in certain ways, but we want to have our boundaries really good in that as well. Concentrate the crowd and turn it into an organized whole, okay? Think how disassociated everyone is, and the shadow of Mars and Gemini has got that covered, right? We want to unite the people under a common goal, under a common feeling, and concentrate, give them a focus, right? They're not focused. It's very scattered in Gemini energy. And you might want to just do that with your own creative ideas. I know all along I have to strip because I got all that Virgo. So I want to do details and lots of layers and da. But when I strip and I get it down to basics, okay, Kelly, what do you do? Readings, classes, community. That's what I do, so we can get them down to bare bones where it's really good. That helps you succeed further. When I tried to be jack of all trades, I tried to be all things to all people. I tried to do everything and be everything. And that did not work. All that did was wear me out. Look at your own central idea and how you organize your thoughts. So me, the shamanic astrology, the earth medicine above and below, connecting earth and sky. That's my whole gig, right? Making a great offering to the spirit of this time generates meaning and good fortune. So again, going within, having that clarity of who's guiding you. Proceed step by step. I got to tell you, that came up over and over and over. We can't be impatient right now. We got to do things in the order that they were received. Literally, as they come into your system, if you integrate in order, then there's no broken pieces. There's no air pockets that, everything's solid, right? Everything comes together in a cohesiveness into that whole. But if we just got pieces all over the place and we can do this and that, but we don't do them in order, it's harder to build something. So proceed step by step, 2 at a time, assemble and reunite. When 2 or more gather, it is always raises the energy, it raises the light, it raises the vibration. Eliminate the need. Oh, I love this. I think I used this in a quote on my website one day. Eliminate the need for fighting and weapons by being alert and prepared. We shouldn't need to fight, but what we want to be clear, we want to have that clarity, we want to have that consciousness and that self-awareness with Mars and Gemini this whole time. We got 7 to 8 months of this, that we need to really be working on that. And more perseverance and more offerings. That also got repeated. The more we can be in our gratitude, we can make offerings to our guides and our spirits and people that hold us, the more you're going to get a response. I'm telling you, the humans are unavailable for consultation, but the ancestors love to help and they want to help, but they have to be invited. They will not impose. Eliminate the impulse to resort to arms through carefully prepared measures, anticipating and dissolving possible conflicts basically before they even happen. So proper pre-planning, again, getting organized, eliminating that impulse to arms. With Mars and Gemini, there are going to be some hurt feelings because they're going to be misinterpreted words. I always tell people, and my husband probably doesn't like this, but we do it all the time. I say, okay, I've spit out everything I got on my mind or my heart to my husband. And then I'm like, okay, I know what I said. What did you hear? Because when he comes back, I realize that his filter has replaced a few words. Think about your spell check. If it doesn't know the word, it makes it up. So does your brain. Your brain will fill in its most common memory, or think of those grooves in your neural pathways. They're so deep. We're resetting all those. We're getting some new neural pathways. We're calling in a new way of thinking again and expressing, and all of that is really coming into a new level. Your purpose in disorder, let's see, you're connected to a deep source of energy, but the link with others is unclear. So again, you want to be back in doing your own processing, what's important for you, what's good for you, what's not good for you. Let people know your real intent, and tension will dissolve into laughter and joy. Okay, so when we're authentic and honest and upfront and integrity about what's going on, we do a lot better. More to do, make an offering to the ancestors who opened the way for achievement. And this was another quote I know I used: look within to find the way out. Look within to find the way out, and find supportive friends. Very important, very, very important. So that is the scholar. Now we're going to do the shaman. That's all the intellectual possibilities. I guess I did forget to go over the chart and the sky council, but let's put it this way, y'all. I can do this pretty quickly. On the retrograde chart, where we're going backward, Mars, action, choices, who you are and what you want, your sacred masculine, is getting the reset in the 8th house, which is ancestors and resources and power, sex, death, money. Our whole idea of all those vital, basic things to being a human are getting an upgrade. So let's call that in. Whatever that new way of believing what's best for you can come in. Now, where the growth happens, remember I said it's going to trine Saturn. That ease and grace is happening with the 3rd house around how you think and communicate and express. So changing your mind and your ass will follow is going to get real easy. Okay. There's certain things we know we don't want to be a part of anymore. There's a certain clarity going on. So you can kind of own that, call that in if you need it. The square to Neptune and that whole crew, remember Vesta and Juno, are right there, really close to Jupiter as well, all in Pisces for October 30th. That means Jupiter is getting out of Aries, back to Pisces. There's going to be some back and forth there. But that's big. That expands that whole challenge around our boundaries. And this is critical, y'all. This is in the 4th house. Sacred space and personal boundaries is the 4th house. That's what it is. So that's where some of the change has to happen, right? How you do things in your private life, how you replenish yourself so you can go in public, how all that works is getting a challenge to grow. And the root is in your thinking. That's where the root, that's where we got to change our minds. The healing is so juicy. The Chiron, the opportunity to gain some traction, is in our creative self-expression, in our authentic self, in how we really want to shine our light. So we're recalibrating that as well. When it goes forward, all of that down low, bottom, personal part of the chart, right? 3rd, 4th, and 5th house. That's all personal about you, the individual. This is where the rewiring is happening. But when it goes forward, Mars is going to be in the 11th house of community and hopes and dreams. And that trine to Saturn is in the 9th house of education and spirituality and expanding your consciousness. So you are going to believe something different on the other side of this. There's going to be an awakening of some kind. The challenge with Neptune is all in the 10th house of career and reputation, what you're known for. Because just guess what? Like I said, when you change your mind, everything else changes as well. So what you present to the world and what you're known for is going to evolve in some kind of critical way. But you want to use your imagination. You want to be in your heart. You want to be connected to spirit and the ancestors with their guidance involved as well. And then that Chiron piece is also showing up in there. If we can recalibrate the boundaries and things that we're doing with each other, with other people, intimately or otherwise, private or public, right? Then that independence and sovereignty that Jupiter move will be in Aries by the time Mars goes forward. So again, we're reworking our practices and things in Pisces so we can go forward in Aries and get something done and do it a different way and be a different person with a different identity and purpose. So all of that is going to be really juicy for going forward. All right, that was it for the intellectual side. Now we get to the storytelling. I know everybody likes that. Marduk, Mars and Gemini. So just kind of open to receive. This is always fun. I love mythology. I love storytelling this way. It's pretty juicy and it's going to get you thinking, like I said, about some things are going to be about you and what goes on in your consciousness. But I caught a lot of things in here that I see in the street in general public. This is what we need our boundaries for and our awareness, right? So Marduk, the warrior gods fight battle after battle down throughout the myths of human history. And yet the only thing we know about who won or who lost comes directly from who wrote it all down afterward. Deep breath. This is why they say the pen is mightier than the sword, and why Yeye is telling us all to write our stories, to write our truth, to write our experiences down so that there is a record. They're trying to erase records, y'all. We can't have that. So who writes the story? Who's telling the story? Who's the source of this narrative, right? We want to pull some stuff out by the root. In a sense, the saying that the pen is mightier than the sword is quite true. Today, after thousands of years, all we know about the battle of Marduk and Tiamat is how Marduk came to rule. It comes from the words written by his priests. By writing down his victory, they made it true, whether it happened that way or not. Tiamat was struck down by Marduk's sword, but she was truly put to death by his scribes. Mars in Gemini understands that words are a powerful weapon, far more permanent than any mere club or cannon, because they can keep cutting long after the hand that wrote them is dead. In the tarot, the suit of swords or knives represents the element of air, acknowledging the fact that it is the mind that cuts things into small pieces by analysis. Keep that in mind. From a watery point of view, however, analysis is dissection, and that which is dissected usually dies. From Gemini's airy point of view, you can't explain something adequately to someone else until you have taken it apart and seen what makes it tick. Deep breath. Mars, the warrior, in the mental sign of Gemini, becomes a living embodiment of the blade, a knife incarnate. The knife can be a verbal rapier in a duel of wits, or a scalpel to prod things out of curiosity, to just poke and prod out of curiosity. Or it can be a butcher's cleaver, hacking away the nebulous, the vague, or simply that which is unwanted to the spin he wants to put on it, to put on things. The war between Marduk and his grandmother, Tiamat, see Neptune in Pisces, okay, part of the challenge, may be merely a myth about change and recreation, or it may be an echo of an ancient coup, the powers of the old matriarchy against the onslaught of the new generation. We will never know because Marduk's scribed warriors did such a good job. In the actual Babylonian myth, Marduk is one of the younger generation of gods, which is appropriate to youth-loving Gemini. Not only that, but he is not even the eldest and most favored by the elders. He is a disaffected and ignored younger son, wanting an inheritance that is being given to the older and steadier children. The archetypal story of Mars in eternal youth Gemini often becomes youth and energy trumping age and stodginess, at least for the first part of their lives. So this would be someone who lives with Mars and Gemini. So they are always keeping that youthful spirit throughout. There is something eternally youthful about any Gemini placement, but with Mars behind it, the sign manifests more as exuberant, aggressive youthfulness than as shy playfulness. Tiamat's major complaint with her younger offspring is that they are noisy, and this too is a Mars and Gemini trait. And see, think of the noise, the static, the distractions, all the chaos in that. Oh my goodness. This may give forth a constant stream of chatter, and even the ones who are quiet can easily be prodded into long, talkative lectures or rants. Marduk also has Gemini's canniness. When Tiamat, her disaffected younger children, approach him and ask him to overthrow their parents before they are destroyed out of pique, he extracts a promise from them that they will invest him with supreme authority should he actually win. Unlike the intellectual magician Enki or the wind god Anu, both of whom have failed to stop their ancestors, Marduk is first and foremost a warrior deity, and he plans to be a ruler. Driving off Tiamat's armies, he slays both her and her consort. His chief weapon is the hurricane. His chariot is a violent tempest. He controls the winds. Anyone who thinks that Gemini is merely a playful, breezy air sign has never engaged in a war of words. Hello, good morning. So yes, we have to watch our words. It can feel very much like being hit with a hurricane, especially with the driving energy of Mars behind it. The enemy is battered and buffeted by winds from all sides until they are beaten down into hopelessness. Thus, Tiamat, the dragon of the ethereal, is defeated. Marduk then takes his blade, the cutting edge of analysis and cold objective thought, and cuts Tiamat up into pieces. As with anything, once the force of primal generative chaos is cut into pieces and exposed for display, it is dead. Deep breath. This is the job of a Mars in Gemini. He cuts things into pieces and makes other things out of them. For him, the death of dissection is a prelude to creation, arranging things as he pleases. For some Gemini Mars individuals, this manifests as imagination or brilliant mental creativity. Deep breath, we can call it in. For others, it manifests as the ability to edit their own reality until it may bear no resemblance to what is actually happening. And we know this is running rampant in the world, right? Deep breath. One negative trait of this placement is the stories that change subtly, little by little, until they have become completely slanted in the favor of the teller and may no longer have very much to do with the truth. Out of Tiamat's body, the ruins of the old regime, Marduk creates the heavens and earth. Her body is split like a fish. Half is raised up and half is lain underfoot. From the blood of her slain consort, Marduk creates the first humans. Then, seeing that they need laws and instructions to live by, he creates the tablets of fate, rules and words by which they can order their lives. For a Mars in Gemini, destruction is the prelude to creativity. In his world, the intellect always triumphs over the body and heart and soul. Deep breath. However, the real world is not so simple, and Marduk's rule is not so secure. First, the tablets of fate are stolen by the stormbird Zu, another aspect of Mars and Gemini. The stormbird represents Mars's wrath. Gemini, in general, doesn't like anger. He tends to repress it, putting it aside with a quip or a jest until it builds up inside him and then explodes. When this happens, his vaunted intellect, the tablets of fate, what they represent, go right out the window. Desperately, he advertises for a hero, even offering his kingship to anyone who can get the tablets back. Suddenly, all the other gods have something better to do, and he is forced to struggle with the stormbird himself in order to regain them. In a sense, the stormy, watery feelings that he slew in Tiamat, remember she was Neptune in Pisces, that's the depths of the ocean, have come back to haunt him. A Mars in Gemini must eventually come to a peaceful reckoning with that part of himself, or it will crop up again and again in new guises, each one harder to kill. Hello, deep breath. Then the worst comes. By this time, Marduk is no longer the victorious younger son. He is now the patriarch himself, and there is a new generation of disaffected youngsters who would like to remove his stodgy self from the throne. They conspire against their elders and send demons to steal the moon's light, which would be a weapon against emotionally repressed fire and air Marduk. The war god manages to defeat them, barely, but he is stunned at their conspiracy. Everyone gets older, and the problem with identifying constantly with the youth is that sooner or later, actual youth starts to disown you, and you have to face your own aging. Mars in Gemini hates to admit that he has overcome the elder conqueror only to become the elder conqueror. He has to face the fact that the more you struggle for the top, the more likely it is that you will be called upon to embody things that you did not expect. Ooh, deep breath. Marduk's story ends there, but a Mars in Gemini has to live his story to the bitter end. In midlife, he needs to turn his formidable intellect to dissecting his own inner nature, even if it feels like a form of suicide or self-death. If he does not come to terms with his vague, nebulous side before the youngsters reject him and rebel, he will have nowhere left to stand and be in for a hell of a midlife crisis. Deep breath. The hardest battle of all is the one against yourself, but it is here that the war god's path inevitably takes him. To be a real victor, one must not slay things in contempt for their natures, but rather view them as honorable opponents, which requires some understanding of them and their reasons. If the recreation of reality, what's up for us, is not to become delusion, reality itself must not be dismissed, but appreciated, even in all its flaws. Deep breath. That was our creative expression. I'm wondering, before we go into a drum journey to ask our ancestors for some real nuggets of truth, Yay, you want to jump in on this mythology?
I think that I have long questioned the defeat of Tiamat. Like we say, when the patriarchy tells the story, it gets twisted. I understand her to be the great ocean herself that covered all of the earth. So every time I hear about him slaying her, I have some reservations about all of that. But in general, the information that is coming through is particularly important for me as a writer and as somebody with a Virgo moon and also a volatile temper. So I am very grateful for everything that's being shared here.
Thank you, darling. I love it. I love it. I did say something on mute and it'll come back to me. But that's where we are. If we can call in that mental health for ourselves and our better boundaries, we shouldn't be as overwhelmed by the changes. And we can start co-creating with these changes to a better world, to what we really want. Oh, I know what I was asking. Do you see it as Nanabuluku? That was the whole ocean, more than a Lokun from the bottom of the ocean.
Well,
That Tiamat?
who's who among the water deities these days is tricky, mainly because we live in a mindset now that is very either or oriented. Either it's a Lokun or it's Nanaburuku, either it's Yemaya or it's Mamiwata. When I think that probably both and all inclusive is probably more accurate. These days, when people speak of Nanaburuku, they tend to associate her with what we call swampland, okay? But it's said that all waters emanated from Olokun. So that would mean that she was a piece of the waters. That's the Yoruba point of view. The Dahomey point of view says that she is the great energy of the universe. So she would be outer space. She's the mother of the sun and the moon. Now, what makes it difficult for a Western translation is we see the sky and the ocean as separate, but in ceremonies, especially among the people in Haiti, they say there is an ocean in the sky, okay? Because the sky and the ocean are made of the same elements in different proportions, so it gets to be very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
For a drum journey,
I have a question to ask,
please. Okay.
About how do you think setting up the new planet that they found relates to the water goddesses? Because I have some significant energy we're setting up, which is said to be Oh my gosh, she's like very prominent in my chart. So as I hear you talking about these water goddesses, I remember watching the movie on Netflix. You should see it. It's a perfect example of and the story is The Fisherman's Tale. It's a
Huh.
movie on Netflix. You can watch it. It's like they must have knew about this myth
The
when you
Fisherman's
watch
Tale.
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
it's on
Fisherman's
Netflix.
Tale.
Check it out and tell me what you think. As you're talking about all these water goddesses, I heard a story towards Sedna that I had never heard, and how the male patriarch sold her out.
Yeah.
This movie that I'm talking about
Yeah.
shares that. So that's
Yeah.
why I say you should definitely watch it on Netflix.
Oh
It
yeah.
is
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
It is deep. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Sedna was a very, very important water spirit connected to the moon among Inuit and northern area people, indigenous people. And the story is that her brother dethroned her and, in fact, maybe even killed her. To me, every time that we see these stories where water spirit or goddess is negatively impacted, there are two interpretations that I give to that. The ecological one is that we are talking about a mass of land erupting in the water. Okay, so when they say Ogun raped Yemaya, okay, I think that what's being said is that the water was whole and then islands rose up or something happened and land came through and parted the waters so that the ocean became rivers, lakes, streams, and ocean. The other thing that I often find when I'm examining those stories is that the other thing they're talking about is a time when a more patriarchal culture invaded and changed the mythology of that particular goddess. Just as all of the Notre Dame temples in Europe that the Catholic Church has claimed were originally goddess sites, you look at the neighboring countries and people invade and they overlay their stuff on top of the other deities. So when somebody says to me, Nanaburuku is swamp water, I say, that's a diminished definition of her because the people in Benin say she gave birth to the sun and the moon, which makes her a celestial being, you see? Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else? Natalie was just sharing that she kept pulling the Sedna card in her goddess deck. So that's another, like Sedna coming up tonight, you all, is a special message. We should all kind of research a little bit and see what message comes. Now we're down for maybe 6-8 minutes. How's everybody feeling? Let's go in. Let's go to our happy place. Take some deep breaths. Let the monkey mind go sit down somewhere. Open our hearts. Breathe as if you're breathing through and from your heart. Feel that expansion. Ask your primary guide to stand at the door. You all know I have Ruby Red Wolf. She stands at the gate between here and liminal space where we're going in. Take some breaths. Might be in mountains or swamps or ocean, whatever your favorite place in nature is. No industry, no humans, no buildings, just nature, herself, and you. And we will go in for 6 minutes. Deep breath. Invite your angels, ancestors, animal spirit guides to bring you a word, a suggestion, a reminder, a practice, a ritual, something to focus your energy so that it isn't scattered. And let's go in. offerings of gratitude. Maybe write down what you want to remember. You can offer cornmeal or tobacco, a crystal, a rock, a lock of hair, whatever you have. Sometimes these short journeys require us to come back later, which I may have to do. I had a pretty incredible one, y'all, in that short period. Dolphin does something with me sometimes where they are leaping over my body across the center and across vertically and horizontally. So there's a cross, and it's almost like a dismemberment journey. And then once they put me up on shore after recalibrating things so that my imagination can be free, sea turtle, I don't think sea turtles ever come to me in my journey and helped remind me about the boundaries and protections that I need to function in the new way, in the new world. But then the big birds came, my eagle, hawks, to get, and this is going to sound bloody, but it didn't hurt. Gouged out all my eyes, ears, nose, mouth, all the senses, because this is how we perceive, and reset then a phoenix tears into all the holes to allow me to see new, to hear new, to speak in a new way, express. Man, that was a lot for 6 minutes. Anyone else feel like sharing?
That is amazing. That was a lot, Kelly. You know, it's interesting because what I encountered was an image of me inside a cave. The cave was at the ocean, and I had a fire inside the cave and was just making my way to the opening of the cave that led to the open sea. So I don't understand how I had a fire in a cave that was in the ocean.
I love it. I love it. That's boundaries and protection with fire and water, creativity and emotional flow and creativity, all of that. I love it.
So you think I'm gonna make my way out of the cave?
I've been to that cave. I go to that cave all the time. I love that cave. That's I think think of Hawaii and the fire and it's new earth. So you're coming into new ground, maybe
I share
new ground, like you were talking about the islands that pop up. You know, and where we might have been drowning in something else, maybe now we'll find some safety, a little higher ground.
I need higher ground, that's for sure.
Yes, we gotta.
Yeah, I need to come up from underground. So maybe that's that message.
I love it. And the fire might be the light leading you out. I don't know. You know, that's good. Juicy. Thank you for sharing. Yes. And Natalie said she had this similar animals show up. I love it. She had eagle and bear and dolphin as well. So that's amazing. She's in the Philippines. And then she remembered something that she needed for a meeting. I love it. So that's how our ancestors can help us in pretty literal ways as well. I have had them, you know, help me remember what I need to remember in the moment and bring me the energy and strength maybe when I didn't have it. And that's another thing about asking for help. That's really important and vital. So we have a support team. Like I said, the humans might be unavailable, but the angels, ancestors, and animal spirit guides really want to be there for us. So thank you everyone for being here. Let me know your aha moments as things unfold. I will cook up these goodies. Share any links or resources you'd like me to put in there. You guys send those to me. I know Deborah is full of resources. I love her for that. And thank you for showing up. Thank you. Thank you. I will get this out as soon as possible. All right, everyone. We'll unmute and say peace and love.